I'm Belle Bear. This is Sacred Mechanics.
I'm multitasking at the moment. I'm driving to uni, which is a rarity. It is 2 to 3 hours from my home on public transport and about hour and a half drive. And I've been getting so diligently public transport for the last couple of months, and it's been really good. But today I just had this urge to record, and the best place for me to record is in my car, and I thought I may as well record and drive to uni at the same time. Plus it has to be really a special occasion to even be in my car, of course, because of the pending doom of the fuel crisis, but we're not going to get into that. I'm trying not to be political, although I know it's usually the elephant in the room when we're living in 2026. There's a couple of things I want to talk about today. Well, since I just mentioned uni, I'll start there. I'm doing this unit this semester that is about the Renaissance and the Baroque. It's an art history subject. And what's really cool is that we've been looking at a lot of Catholic stuff, of course, but we've been looking at yesterday the work that Raphael did for a decade, Raphael and his team, in the papal suite, so the apartment in the Vatican where the Pope would live. And what's great is all this academic reading I'm having to do. I'm learning so much about the Vatican and the papacy and the Pope, and I know that there's some stuff going on with the Pope v. Trump right now, which is really interesting. But I just wanted to, I went to Catholic school for 12 years, and there's just so much that I didn't learn in school about this. And I know I'm still skimming over the surface, but I didn't realize that the Medici family, or the Medici family, around the early 16th century and even earlier than that, during the 15th century, had such an incredible stronghold. And that I think it was Pope Leo the 10th, I want to say, is part of the Medici family. And this all just started ringing bells in my head yesterday. I want to do more research. I don't know anything about it, but I'm starting to understand that it's the structure of all of these powerful families in that time that started forming bonds and just creating the world as we know it in many ways, the power structures, especially the Catholic Church, and maybe, all the rights and wrongs of the church that have happened since and that continue to go on. Yeah, I found it really intriguing. So that tells you not a lot, but maybe somewhere to look if you're interested in that stuff. I'm eternally interested in the history of anything spiritual, religious, in all religions. I just find it incredible how things started, what are the commonalities of the stories that many faiths share, creation stories, the Godhead, and all of that stuff. I'm endlessly fascinated. I just tell my kids sometimes, if I could, I would just go and sit in a monastery or an ashram somewhere and just study this stuff with a shaved head and bowls of rice. I'd be pretty happy. Maybe later, not yet. And anyway, during this study, we're also been looking at Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper. And I didn't know, but The Last Supper was a thing where there's lots of Last Supper paintings. Who knew? There's heaps from before Da Vinci's and after, and it's just like the Maestro where we've got the Mary and baby Jesus on her knee. Well, with The Last Supper, there's many interpretations of that as well. So I'm getting such an education right now. And looking into that's been really interesting, and it was really funny to hear my professor tell the class how awful and terrible the Da Vinci Code is or was, and how wrong it was. So Oh, I really like the Da Vinci Code, so I was a bit disappointed. But she said nonetheless, go read that. I would like to defend the Da Vinci Code on one thing where it's been labelled a conspiracy that the figure to Christ's right in the Last Supper is Mary when it's supposed to be John. And apparently John is always painted young and soft and innocent looking when he's in the presence of Jesus. But it looks like a woman. I've got to tell you, I find it alarming. But we don't say this in academia and it's closed down, but really it's not a guy. It's not John. I'll probably come back and have to delete this bit later when I'm really knee deep in my studies and I'm a professor or something. But right now it's hard for you to convince me that it's a male, because all the other documentation talks about Leonardo da Vinci being a real perfectionist with the human form. He studied facial expressions, how men react emotionally, how women react emotionally. Knew what he was doing. And also, incredibly, Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper survived a bombing in World War II. They'd sandbagged the artwork, and the room or the building it was in got totally blasted, bombed, destroyed, but the wall, I think the wall and its facing wall remain intact because, they'd sandbagged it and protected it, and they deemed it a miracle, which is cool. But I don't know if it was a miracle because they sandbagged it, but actually everything around it was completely flattened, so maybe that is a miracle. There's just so much I didn't know about this painting. I did get taken to see it by my family on the great, what I like to call the Griswold vacation in 1989 we did in Europe, and got to see a lot of this stuff. I was so lucky, but I don't think I nowhere near comprehended the power of what I was standing there looking at. And I wish I'd had the opportunity to do that with a bit more of a clear mind as it maybe a bit older to really appreciate it. I was 16 or 17 or something like that. The Da Vinci's Last Supper painting was put against the wall, and it's painted in a room where the monks were in Milan. I can't think of the church that we're in, but right now off the top of my head because I'm driving, but all the monks would dine there and all their tables are lined up, and the tables are on like elevated platforms. So it meant that they were sort of dining with Christ and his 12 disciples are also dining, and the artist had matched the napery, they think, and the crockery and the sort of food that the monks were eating. So it all blended in to one experience. I just thought this was like the best mural ever. I love this idea. So what I'm really realizing through these studies, all the way back to classic times and beyond, is that there's always been these really modern ideas and cool ideas. It's not just us that are modern. We always think we're modern, but everyone before us was modern as well, and that's how progress and creativity has evolved into what we have now in this crazy old world. Jumping subjects now. So I've got this boyfriend. He's been my boyfriend for 6 years, over 6 years. And I don't know, with our modern language, like, he was my partner because we lived together for 5 years. But now I just call him my boyfriend because we don't live together. I don't know if that's what you meant to do as a sort of middle-aged single person. It's like, I like that saying that the kids are using now, like you're married or single. I like this. But yeah, so my boyfriend, he's an atheist. And it's made everything really interesting for me, and maybe for the better, where I can't comprehend the position of an atheist as much as he can't comprehend the position of a spiritual person. I mean, he's of course, he's absolutely can't stand the idea of organized religion. But beyond that, he's a full atheist. Like, you die and then there's nothing. And it goes that far. And so I guess some conversations hit a wall, but we spend a lot of time debating. And he's so good because he listens to all of my experiences, impressions, and I don't know, my sensitivities. And he never puts me down or says that isn't real, but he just finds this delicate way of saying, that's not for me. That's not who I am. Or that's not me. So I just wondered if any of you out there have found success in a relationship where there's great disparity in your spiritual beliefs. I mean, if we're talking about textbook, it's probably a deal breaker where if someone's like really spiritual and someone's an atheist, it just feels like a dead end. But maybe that's if you're just trying to raise a family together and we're midlife. We're not trying to raise a family together. We're just trying to get along. So we have some absolute clanger conversations, and I'm thinking about getting him on to the podcast for a conversation so you can see what I mean. Like, we just sort of got into a little flare because we just don't really fight much or anything like that about spirituality the other day. You know, I was thinking, I just wish you would like experience some sort of apparition at the end of your bed or something like that, you know, because that's what happens is we wander around this earth all fine until something supernatural occurs, until we see a ghost, we hear the voice of someone from someone that's passed away from the other side. In my case, I've had some really dramatic experiences, like actually insane, where I was woken up and there was an angel at the end of my bed, full size. And it didn't change me, it intensified me, because I was already I was born intently curious about spirituality and religions and things like that. It's just part of my path. But yeah, I wish this happened to more people more often, because it would definitely enrich our conversations. And I could be like, see, I told you so. I don't know why humans don't get to look through the veil and see things very much. I would say that I've had a massive amount of those experiences, but they used to be years apart. Now they're more frequent, but they used to be years apart, even with someone like waiting for things to happen. And then other people, they really are very dedicated in their spirituality, and they don't need to have a glowing orb float through their room or anything like that. They don't need to hear the big voices. And this is probably the most spiritual person of all. This isn't me. I like my signs. I like being encouraged and coaxed along the path. I think I need it. Maybe I'm a real visual person and I just like it, but I really admire people that do the work, stay centered and focused, and they absolutely do not get these experiences that are quite lucid from the other side. And I think there's stories of people in history where that some need the signs. I think there's a really famous one of a priest in my readings yesterday that I had to do for uni, where he was asking God or Christ for proof that he was really ingesting the body of Christ with the Eucharist, you know, the communion. If you're Catholic, you'll know what that is. And the bread in his hand, or the Eucharist in his hand, started to bleed. that's really full on, and it bled onto this piece of cloth that is still somewhere enshrined under glass somewhere, probably in Italy, probably in a cathedral somewhere. But this guy needed proof. And there's other popes and priests that don't need the proof. They're like, I don't need God to prove himself to me. And I think this is the high ground. Anyway, I'm not on the high ground. I really like a good sign. I think I need the encouragement. I think a lot of people need the encouragement. And so if you don't need that encouragement and you're doing the work, you're meditating and, working on building up and improving your energy field constantly and trusting in the universe, you're awesome. You're a legend, and I wish I could be more like that. Keep going. I also wanted to talk a little bit about the energy we have within us, this inner flame, this spark that appears when we're created, when our soul enters our body at conception. If you've seen that scientific footage, it is incredible, that moment where that electrical charge begins, when our life really begins. It's amazing. That energy that grows and grows and seems to fill our body and sort of extend outside of our body and becomes something measurable, like our aura and our meridians and our, it fuels our brain waves and the whole electrical system in our body. You need to remember that this is perpetually charged from within, and we can keep generating this energy as cleanly and as purely as possible without having to get it from other people. We really are self-sufficient in this way. It's like, well, I'm in Australia, it's as if my skin is solar panels. I don't need other people or things to get energy from. And this is good to remember, because when you're worried about other things and other people draining you, or you need them to be able to do this and that, you need to just consider that way of thinking and allow yourself to disconnect a little bit. And remember that you are a powerhouse within yourself, within your own skin. This goes for healing. This goes for learning to relax and equalize your own emotions and your own energy levels, and just stay on the level and to stay centered, that this is not coming from outside of you. And if it is, that means you're sort of opening the door to being depleted in other ways, or even believing you're being depleted. And once we are depleted or believe we're depleted, that is when the negative feelings of that can come about. That's where we might get some anxiety and depression and just some physical ailments. But we want to stay more insulated, like a really healthy, good battery that doesn't need to be connected to much except the earth, really. So when we're looking at energy being fed into our energy field, we need to be selective wherever possible. And we need to know when to throw our shields up, when it's the sort of energy that we do not want to infiltrate our field. Because everything, of course, energy flows, but there's this baseline energy that we keep within us that's designed for our own well-being and sustenance. So this outside energy can come from people, of course. It can come from one individual, or it can come from a group where you are in an environment where that group has a certain kind of vibe or energy, and it's going to impact you. And if you don't want it to impact you, when I say throw the shields up, it's really an act of intent where you sort of imagine or visualize or project from within you a shield that sort of holds your energy and just doesn't, you're shutting the door basically on other energy that's coming in. And it is a really important practice, and it was instilled in me when I was first being trained to do energy healing. And it's a practice that I continue working on, because when you start really seeing and noticing things day to day, you need this frequently. In fact, all the time. How often you walk in a room or go into the supermarket or meet a new person, you just want to... It's like a energy hygiene, I suppose. And you can practice this really by just using your thoughts. It's something that you create. With some of my clients that come in, and I'm giving them a few tips on how to protect and shield their own energy, because sometimes they have such a great experience with the energy healing, and they ask me, how do I keep this feeling and not lose it? And so I go on to explain to them those steps and how to protect that energy. And with some of the ladies in particular, I'm like, think of the most beautiful coat or cape or gown you can. Remember it, and that's yours. And before you leave the house, you throw it on. Or before you walk into a crowded place, you just very dramatically, in your mind, in your imagination, drape yourself with it, throw it on, and off you go. And you've got this beautiful, energetic shield, cape, sparkly, whatever, that you keep with you all of your life. And this becomes really symbolic, and it helps our mind do the work in that way, because sometimes we need these props spiritually, which can be helpful all the way along. And sometimes even when I go into trance and do work and do my readings and things, I do have some of these energetic props with me, or a space that I work within to do the energy healing, or a space to converse with spirits on the other side, or angelic beings or other beings. It's like I have a boardroom and everyone comes in there, and I have different ones, some are set in nature, some are like really sterile and like white and that sort of thing, or a crystal cave, or we're underwater or whatever, or we're in space. But it's really interesting and fun, and it helps you put some human structure around your energy work. And I also find that you can build these environments for yourself through doing a variety of guided meditations, and that you can return to these places when you want to do certain kinds of work. I did some guided meditation recordings last year. I think you'll probably find them somewhere. I think they're part of my Begin Again course. There's probably a couple in there. I have a self-paced 10-day Begin Again course. It's only $44 Australian if you wanted to purchase it and download and run through 10 days worth of internal resetting. Anyway, so in this guided meditation, we go to a space like that and ask ourselves certain questions, and that's the work, if we're just feeling a bit frazzled, that we can go back into. You'll also find there's a lot of guided meditations probably on YouTube or Spotify and things like that. That's the beauty of the digital world, is there's an abundance of information. You just need to find the right person to deliver it that you trust, that you connect with, you like their ethos and their ethics and that sort of thing, and you roll with it. Because if you don't quite like where this person's coming from, you're halfway through a guided meditation and you're distracted by the person delivering it. So you've really got to make sure you're into it and really appreciate and like the person delivering it. So if you have any other questions about this, please message me. The podcast lives on Substack now. I've left Spotify. You can still play this on Spotify, but I don't let any money pass through their hands or anything like that. We're now on Substack, and you can message me there, or I think this gets fed onto YouTube as well, and you can message me there too, I believe, or you can find my email or whatever online. I am always very happy to answer any questions you have about your practice and your learning how to sort of live on a spiritual path, I suppose, where you're maybe an eclectic sort of spiritual person where you're interested in a bit of Buddhism, you may have been raised a Christian or Catholic, or you like a bit of Wicca or witchcraft and you're really interested in shamanism. Like, there's so many ways to approach this, and I personally have dabbled in a lot of this through my life, exploring and searching for the truth. I think spoiler alert is it's all the same thing when you really get to the kernel, but the journey is absolutely fun. I've made this little 10-minute sort of documentary, and that is on YouTube as well. And it sort of has me running through what that kernel of truth is, and a lot of that film or video contains a channeled angelic message, really, of what the truth is, of what has been explained to me from other realms. So there's a lot for you to explore and investigate there too. But I think step one, no matter where you're at in your life right now, really happy, everything's awesome, really worried, really not feeling good, scared, abandoned, what you do own and that no one can take from you is your personal source energy. And I think it's critical that you learn how to handle and harness and muster that energy, because this is what will keep you going and enhance your life all the way till the time that you transition to the next place. I'm realizing as the episodes travel on now that I can't help but want to keep leaning back into a couple of ways of speaking to you guys. One is from the position of being in my 50s, and I didn't think the podcast would be about that, but if I'm to be completely natural and be myself, it's of course going to infuse through everything I say. Where I turned 54 recently, and it's like I've left the shore of feeling like I'm 45 or 40 or 30 or whatever it is. Like, there was this time where I could just keep hanging on and feeling a certain way, but then you do leave the shore and then you're ready to float a bit more out to sea and understand what the aging process is like and the joys and the benefits from it. Absolutely, it's not from a place of fear. I'm kind of excited about this and wondering when I can let my hair go grey completely. It's sort of starting to, and back to this monastery thing of like just being able to have really short hair and just like wear draping linen. Like, I'm getting close. I love this. But you realize, like with me in particular, I'm the only mature age student in my cohort. They're all year 12 school leaders. So I'm often older than my professor, just by a little bit, but I am, where I've lived lives upon lives upon lives compared to them. And it sort of hits home a bit when you're sharing stories with people and what doesn't seem very long ago, like say 15 years ago, they're just looking at you like, what? When? What happened? And so, yeah, I think getting to mid-50s is freaking awesome. And, you know, I've got kids that are growing fast, and it's satisfying now. I can have more adult conversations with them, and they're asking for advice, and I realize, oh yeah, I've done that, or I've been there. I've got buckets of advice. So, but maybe this is my thing, because I remember after school in primary school, my mum would always be calling saying, the phone's ringing again, it must be for you, Belinda. And people would call me for advice after school and have really long conversations, and I'd be standing in the kitchen, you know, my mum's cooking dinner with one of those phones fixed to the wall with the big long cord, and I'd become although I didn't really understand at the time, some sort of advice or helpline then. So I don't know, maybe I'm going to look at my astrology chart. Maybe it's just part of my function is to have all of these really insane experiences, more than one dark night of the soul, so that I can share with others a little bit of encouragement and do those things. I don't even remember what my point was. That's okay. I'm in my mid-50s. Am I allowed to say I can't remember why I was saying that now? No, probably not. Probably not for another 20 or 30 years, actually. I can't get away with that. I have to just keep building my neural pathways and not slip into forgetfulness through laziness. Yes, the podcast bones really are starting to shape up like this. I'm going to be talking from my perspective as a middle-aged woman who has lost everything a couple of times. I've had grief, a couple of divorces, financial ruin, one hand. On the other hand, I had an incredible career, traveled the world. Lived in Paris and lived in Canada and Sydney, and I've traveled to dozens and dozens of countries on someone else's dime doing my work. Incredible, had great loves, great experiences, and done things that a lot of people never have the chance to do. So I've got these binary experiences within me, and then right through the middle of this has been my spiritual inquiry, always seeking, being an empath and feeling things and seeing things, right up the spine of all of this. So I'm starting to feel like a old tree, but a healthy tree. And that's why I feel like doing this podcast and just talking about some of this stuff, because I know there must be a few people out there that want to hear some of the stuff I'm saying, or they need to hear it, or they just find it entertaining to have found a like-minded soul that's had all of this life happen behind them, but right through it there's also this spiritual inquiry, and at the very least psychic curiosity, or they've lost loved ones and they're interested in mediumship and what happens on the other side, which I know a lot about through personal despair. I've done a lot of research, but I've even been researching before the tragedies in my life and long after, because I'm part of that world and it never ceases to intrigue me, and sometimes it freaks me out, so I have to unplug. But other times I'm really grateful and enthralled that we really are in just an experience in a human body, one of many, many experiences, which helps take the edge off when there's a lot of anxiety and fear. Like, my God, we're being force-fed fear like we're a bunch of turkeys right now, right? And there's just, if I can help even one person not buy into that fear and just stay centered in their energy, understand why they're here and that they feel strong and they feel safe and they feel loved, then wow, like, that's the power of the podcast right there. The other thing I want to talk about in the podcast, just because I don't really have many friends, so sometimes I have these little ideas and thoughts or things happen personally, and I honestly don't really have anyone to share them with except my atheist boyfriend, and he doesn't want to hear it all the time. So I'm going to tell you. Maybe it'll be funny for you guys, or maybe you'll have had similar experiences or thoughts or ideas, or maybe you just think I'm funny, but I'm not funny. I'm not a comedian, but some things I say I think are really funny. I laugh at myself a lot. Anyway, this is Sacred Mechanics now. It started off as an idea to teach coursework and run through all of the formalities of spiritual training, and I have a lot of training. If you're new to the podcast, I've been studying over 20 years with a lot of formal training in shamanic coaching, theta healing, just whatever, just a lot. And I've worked one-on-one with clients off and on for the last 20 years as well, doing tarot, clairvoyant reading, mediumship, spiritual coaching, and I still do some readings sometimes. So the podcast is like this perfect middle ground where I can just pick up the microphone when I'm driving on the highway, like right now, and connect with you. I think the other unique perspective I can bring is that I'm a first-year uni student at 54. And what this tells me is it's never too late to start. There's no age on anything, actually. Like, if you're thinking about starting over and changing everything, I'm telling you to do it. You don't have to keep Googling, is so-and-so too old to go back to school, or too old to move countries, or too old to do this or do it. No, it's not too old. You are as old as your spirit. You're actually extremely old. It's just the age of your body or your shell that you're questioning. Your soul knows better. So I like to talk about those interesting things as well, because I know just from being in this huge university I go to that there's almost no one in classes that I notice that's even close to my age. So there's not many of us taking these financial risks or dives, but I had nothing to lose anyway. So, but some of you, I know you do, you've got mortgages and other responsibilities, but where you can navigate to sort of cut your losses in some parts to enrich yourself in your own life, or if you haven't fulfilled a desire or wanted to achieve something, I'm here to tell you to do it. At the very least, consider a serious plan of how to do it and start looking at it and start becoming that person now. Even if it's just on the inside, that's where everything starts. Not external factors, it's internal factors. It's your intention, it's your desires, it's your ambitions and what your drivers are. It's getting to understand who you are and what really makes you tick, what makes this life worth living. Why are you here? There's going to be something. Don't feel like your why is in the past. It's in the future. I think that bit of advice is the law of attraction and manifesting 101, but you need to start internally. No one needs to know. It is free. You need to stop scrolling, get offline a bit, and really journal or just think. Be quiet within yourself. Find that sound of silence in yourself and ask, who am I? What do I want? What do I need? How do I love more? Because just to loop back to this concept of us being an energy source connected to a larger grid of energy, it seems to be powered by a source that is pure love. So I'm guessing that the more love you can feel, or appreciation and just openness to this feeling of adoration and wow, you're opening the faucet or the channel of that source energy at a higher velocity into your being, which is going to be very healing, give you a lot of insight, make you feel like you're not in a vortex of any sort, that you're deeply connected to everything. And just to quote automatic writing I did last week, because I still ask these questions to my guides and I do a fair bit of automatic writing. It just seems to be a quick, easy way for me to get source information. They said to me, my guides are called the Five. They sound like a boy band or something, but I'll roll with it. They said to me last week, you are the crow and the crow is you. because I love birds. I love wild birds, and I look at crows all the time, and with my theta healing technique, I try and connect with other animals and birds sometimes as a practice to stay attuned, because I used to do this when I was young and was learning, and connect with their energy field and imagine that we swap bodies, like shape-shifting, like I can see through their eyes and they're in me. Anyway, I do this a lot. But yes, the 5 said, you are the crow and the crow is you. So me trying to alter this energy and shift like that is actually already done. That is actually how everything's already built. Try and get your head around that. It's an interesting concept, and it's probably more real than anything else.
Thanks for listening. I'm Belle Bear, and this is Sacred Mechanics.